The Last Policeman is a book written by Ben H. Winters and published on July 10th of 2012. It's the winner of the Edgar Award and is the tale about a police officer trying to prove that a self-termination case isn't actually as it seems and was actually a murder. But it also deals with the fact that in 6 months, a giant asteroid named Maya is going to come down from space, smash into the planet, and wipe out all life on Earth. The book itself was a refreshing read. A nice mashup between sci-fi, apocalypse, and detective fiction. The Last Policeman succeeds well in trying to be both. We got equal parts focused on the world trying to come to terms with the fact that in half a year, all life on it's going to be gone, along with the detective's tale of trying to solve the termination case, both interweaving rather nicely into each other. Our main character, Henry Palace, is an interesting enough character on his own, being one of the few people in the world that seems not to focus all that much on the coming in, believing that just because the world's ending doesn't give you an excuse to start being a horrible person or to start disregarding the lives of others. He's very determined. He's always wanted to be a detective since he was a little kid. And when this opportunity finally falls into his lap due to the coming apocalypse, he's determined to live out his life at his dream job, even straight up to the end. Honestly, I'm not going to lie, his pure focus and dedication on being a detective actually makes him come off a bit neurodivergent in some cases. Although I'm not entirely sure that's what the author was going for. It just that's what it feels like. Because he has such a single-minded focus on solving his case, even when he's in the middle of a different, heavy conversation about something else. His tone is a good mix of the intrigue of the detective novel, along with that overhanging sense of dread about the world coming to an end. Everyone obviously feels the end coming, and it's definitely underlaid through everything that happens in the book, but without being so stifling that it just feels depressing. Society is coming undone, but is still holding together, fraying at the edges as it desperately clings to itself and tries not to fall apart, with even it feeling like at times just a single thread is all that's keeping it together. And we even see that there's something over there we see the things trying to cut that final thread, such as a small plot line in the background where one country is saying they're going to nuke the asteroid once it gets close, but all the other countries are saying, no, we're not going to let you do that, because if you don't destroy the asteroid completely, we're going to have 1 million different asteroids striking Earth, and now they're going to be radioactive. I think the book succeeds best, however, in discussing its personal philosophy. While reading this book, I couldn't help but think of a small scene from Young Guns 2. My family loved Young Guns when I was a kid, so I watched both quite a bit. Now, in Young Guns 2, this is plain.
Remember the stories you tell us about the three Chinamen playing Fan-Tan? Someone runs up to him and says, "Hey, the world is coming to an end." And the first one says, "Well, I best go to the mission and pray." And the second one says, "Well, hell, I'm gonna go buy me a case of mezcal and 6 whores." And the third one says, "Well, I shall finish the game. I shall finish the game, Doc."
And this book really plays with this idea, this small little adage, I guess, or colloquialism. I'm not sure what it is. But this book really plays with the ideals presented in that small little scenario. One of the biggest hurdles in the way of the mystery is the fact that no one cares anymore. I mean, in 6 months, everyone's going to be dead. So who cares if Peter Zellman, the victim, self-terminated or was terminated non-consensually? And we see a lot of people within these various 3 stages, and maybe even a 4th stage. You got Palace, who's the guy that's like, I'm going to finish this game. He's a detective. He's always wanted to be a detective, and he's going to live his life as a detective until the end. At the point where some people are even like, I think you were the only one ready for this apocalypse, apparently. And at times, this can make him come off as admirable, but at other times, it makes him come off as callous and disregarding of others. He's treating the world as if it's going to continue on after 6 months. But there's so many people who are just like, let us do what we got to do to live our final months of life. And he doesn't want to let them do that. At times, it can even come off like he's digging himself so deep into this work to not think about the world. Now, the only issue I have particularly with that small characterization is at times it doesn't feel like that's what the author is going for, and that comes off almost unintentional, with the author trying to say Pallas is completely in the right about how he acts at all times. But that's merely speculation, and I would let you draw your own conclusion involving that. But you also, throughout the book, have people who are praying, that we see several of them throwing themselves so desperately into old and new religions, as they believe the power of prayer will eventually save them and uplift them from danger. Pallas comes across several people who are basically out there with cardboard signs or wearing those monk habits, saying, "Prayer, it will save us." But for the most part, everyone just kind of ignores them. Most people think, oh, well, prayer's not going to help us. It would have helped us already. And then you got other people who is like, just keep living your life. Nothing's going to change. But then you also have the people who are getting drunk and sleeping with 6 women, as mentioned in there. They're trying to do the bucket list, as it's been called, where people will go out and just do whatever they had on their bucket list before the final months. There's also the 4th type that gets brought up quite a bit, and that is the people who have given up. Now, this is the biggest issue. A lot of people are the 4th type in this world, and a lot of question keeps coming in, what takes you to the 4th type? There's one particular detective throughout the story named Andreas who is teetering between praying and the 4th type, giving up. And throughout the story, you see him so heavily struggle, grasping and trying to find just the smallest glimmer of hope that maybe this asteroid won't hit us. That maybe the world will continue on after 6 months. Until eventually Pallas, who needs his help but can't get him to focus, knocks over his coffee cup and says, "I'm thinking about that coffee falling off the edge of the table." And then after the coffee falls off the edge of the table, he says, "Oh look, it happened anyways." And at first you think he may have gone through to Andreas, maybe snapped him out of it and put him into the I'm going to finish this game mentality. But Pallas unintentionally pushes him to the 4th mentality, giving up. And when Pallas and Andreas are talking at a bar later on, Andreas just kind of says, "Well, it was a fun ride," and promptly throws himself in front of a bus in front of Pallas. And that's just one of those, it's handled with enough nuance that it doesn't feel gratuitous or anything. It really lends to the tone of the book. And really the whole book explores this theme. At what point do you give up? At what point should you just say, there's no point in continuing on anymore? One of the quotes that I personally love, because I'm more of an optimist. I'm one of those people who believes you should stick it out as long as possible, no matter what. Things can always get better. And one of the things that is mentioned repeatedly in this, in order for something to be a 1 in a million chance, it had to have happened once. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a 1 in a million chance. It would be a 0 chance. Which means there's always a chance that 1 in a million can happen again. And it's just a very nice sentiment, a good way to show that no matter how steep the odds are stacked against you, there's always cause to believe in something that seems as unlikely as possible. There's even a small hint at the end of the story that Nico, Pallas' sister, may have found that 1 in a million chance to save people. I haven't read the sequels to know, and that's pretty much it. Overall, I would give this book a 8 out of 10. I would recommend anyone who's looking for a detective novel with an interesting premise pick this up. I think it blends pretty well with the pre-apocalypse state of mind with the detective novel. Pallas can come off as somewhat callous and disregarding of other people's emotion, but I think that comes off more on your own personal philosophy of whether or not that's bad or good. However, I would say that if self-termination is a very touchy subject for you, I would definitely recommend giving this a skip, because the book focuses a lot on it, both on people who've done the act and the concept of it itself. But other than that, yeah, that's what I have to say about this book. With that, remember, with every book comes an adventure, and every adventure is worth having, even the bad ones.